Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports, coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the number one network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the number one sports show in the universe, according to Big C. And them good old boys down south, I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond in London, England, as well as Paris, France. Of course, you good old boys in Canada, we love you in Africa, the Big C tribe. But there's no one we love more than the good old boys down south in the land of the free and the home of the brave on a beautiful December the 20th, 2019. Rondo Deportes, Big C, will be calling in shortly. I know he's out on vacation. He actually slept on the beach. He thought that it was always warm in California. I think it got a little bit cold out here, even though beautiful Southern California is known to be warm. I do want to say today's show is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and test drive yours, tell them Charlton and Big C sent you. I know there's a lot of things going on in sports. A lot of people looking forward to some bowl games, some college bowl games kicking off. Of course, a lot of big NFL football games starting over this weekend. And San Francisco 49ers, they're playing the LA Rams. Actually going to be playing that game in San Francisco, Santa Clara on a Saturday night. So that's going to compete with a lot of the people that do things normally on Saturday in the Bay Area. But it should be amazing what happens over there. I want to just touch on a few things before I tie in with the NCAA. We have the Bahamas Bowl that's being played. Charlotte versus Buffalo. It's on ESPN. Starts tonight. It already, on the way. We don't give out scores, but it's a kickoff game to the postseason, and it's a pretty nice destination. One of the programs will have its first win, the first appearance for the 49ers from Charlotte. And also, when you look at the Buffalo, it's going to be they're 0-3 since joining the FBS, but they'll have a good chance to get out there and decide who wins that game. But I want to also throw up another game that makes a lot of kind of back and forth when we look at college sports. The Frisco Bowl, Kent State versus Utah State, ESPN2, starts today, 7:30 kickoff. And then going bowling isn't an every-year occurrence for the Golden Flashes, so they'll certainly be glad to be there. But the Aggies from the Mountain West Conference figure they have the advantage with a lot more bowl experience, even if draft-bound quarterback Jordan Love doesn't participate. However, when you hear about good old boys doing things that might be a little bit foolish before the start of their, hopefully, pro days, their pro debut, good old boys like to go out and put things in a piece of paper and they puff on it. We know it's legal in some states for the cannabis is legal in state, but it's not legal if you're an athlete, and it's not legal if you're a minor to get into you have a scholarship. You're playing major college football, and you decide that you want to puff on something before the game or before the weekend. And we had Jordan Love had some issues with that, and I know that people are so on the fence about so many things, and I don't even know where I stand with it. I don't care how much they legal. I haven't tried to tell people what to do with their own lives. I know we hear about sex, drugs, and rock and roll and music and entertainment industry. What do people do in their own time? That's their business, whether the government says it's legal or not. But I want to just bring up the fact that people who may be having a lot of consternation about why an athlete would be so foolish to use an illegal substance before a game. And I know we talked about Josh Gordon with the New England Patriots the other day with Big C and I were talking about that. Has a ban, indefinite suspension from the Seattle Seahawks. But if you think about all of the college football bowl games that are out there, we're going to cover that. I wanted to lead into that and come right back to it after I give out some of our hotline information. I do want to say that Big C Sports is sponsored by Google and Alexa. Just say Google or Alexa, and you'll hear from our sponsors. You'll hear welcome to the show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he'll do his thing, and I really appreciate the way things are going with Big C Sports. You can also follow Big C Sports on Xfinity Comcast Television, launching on Roku TV, Apple TV, Fire TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. I want to just give out this National Suicide Hotline, 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255, or you can text 255. That's 838-255, and people can get some help. And I know everybody knows that somebody needs help with something going on in their lives. I also want to just acknowledge Big C Sports, acknowledged by iHeartRadio as one of the top podcasts in the universe, coming from their language, and I really appreciate that. So I want to go into this sponsorship thing about NCAA, and sometimes it doesn't follow its own rules. Again, there was a player suspended. He's actually going to be able to play. So he's going to be able to play, and because money talks, and when you have a big enough name, sometimes you get through with it, and they won't hold things against you. But when you have so many rules, I've always thought the NCAA, with their it's a violation not to pay players for their efforts and likeliness. And at the same time, we have sponsorships that they have products that will make it illegal for an athlete to play a game. Now, to me, that's amazing, because if you look at the NCAA has pretty strict moral standards about advertisers, allegedly, and sponsorships, allegedly, at college football bowl games, according to the organization's postseason bowl handbook. There's a 24-page document that states that certain things can or cannot be done. Pool halls with adult entertainment are not permissible and are not to be associated with these games. Casinos, beer, wine, and other alcoholic beverages also are listed as impermissible. That means you cannot have it. However, we know on almost every commercial, you see them good old boys, and they'll have some type of libation, some type of beverage that's supposedly illegal according to the NCAA's handbook, but they're letting guys do it and get away with it, and we know there will be players who will be suspended, and sometimes they'll overrule it because the bowl game is big enough, and they don't want to have guys missing out on the bowl game, so they'll let them play. So some of the things I want people to think about, when they do at least 20 of this year's 40 postseason bowl games, it lists beer companies, it lists liquor companies, or casino companies as sponsors or partners on their websites. So it's just like I was telling Big C, Major League Baseball is they're gonna start giving treatment as opposed to fines for players that are caught with certain substances, and marijuana was one of those substances. That's what a college player was caught smoking, and it was going to cost him a chance to play in a bowl game, and some bigger people prevailed and said, no, he's going to play in the game. And so everybody has their own opinion about who can and who can't play in a game. And that's everybody's right to have their own opinion. But just think about this. Whenever a player gets suspended or fined for having whatever substance that he's not supposed to have, in 2000, with the 2019 bowl season set to begin tonight, critics say the answer involves money, and we know that, appearances, and a sliding scale of morality. If you have the right kind of money, then they will allow you to have whatever you want. And to me, it's amazing. 20%, actually 20 of this year's 40 bowl games list beer companies, liquor companies, brands or casino companies as sponsors or partners on their websites. So there will be times when companies or owners will invest in a product. That same product will be illegal if one of their athletes will test positive for it. So that doesn't mean that they're anti it. They're just anti the public knowing about it. A lot of times they'll just form a corporation, and that corporation will back that product. So when you think about that, the NCAA does not operate bowl games. It does not certify their right to host NCAA teams and ensure that they meet the minimum standards of governances. The NCAA president and his staff even have the authority to rule about whether a sponsor or advertisers associated with the Division I bowl game meets the principles stated. Now, in the handbook, according to that handbook, so when you have players that are suspended, and there's been several players on the Oklahoma football program, I mean, maybe some good old boys down south at LSU had something to do with that to make it easier for them to get by the Sooners, but I don't know. I know nefarious things happen. But when you think about that, and you think about the quarterback in the Utah State game that also had been caught, puffing on something that you're not supposed to have, they find a way to let their top players, their top moneymakers, get by with maybe a slap on the hand, or sometimes they'll just admonish them But an admonishment is not always something that leads to players not being able to play. When you also look at the language in the handbook, it states that if you're throwing it out there, probably could be cleaned up a lot more. There's a lot of people that are out there talking about these substances. And again, baseball, I think when you look at their commissioner and Manfred, they have the best policy so far to start in 2020, where players will start getting help as opposed to suspended or fined when they're caught with their hand in the cookie jar. And it's going to trickle down to other sports. The NFL would be next, followed by the NBA, because we know players are doing things anyway. But I want to just keep this in mind as we talk about some of the schools that are the highest recruited schools, the biggest attendance, oftentimes the most of the programs that are in the top 25. As a game attendee or game attendance has declined in recent years, schools have become concerned about drawing fans to games when they could stay at home and stream it on their TVs or on their handheld tablets, or they can watch it on large televisions now without waiting in line to buy a libation. So this year, and this is what I always talk to Big C about, this year the Southeastern Conference, it voted to lift a ban on stadium alcohol sales, allowing those schools. And when Big C says, why are so many people going south to play sports? Why are they leaving the West Coast? But the SEC Conference, Southeastern Conference, they voted to lift a ban on stadium alcohol sales. Now, as far as I know, you got to be 21 to legally drink. So if you're saying that players, you want the student body to go to a game, they're going to start IDing everybody, it's just inviting that environment in because of money. They're allowing this to happen. They're allowing these schools to join others that have already allowed it despite concerns about alcohol abuse. And we talk about that all the time. Things that players will be banned for. The athletic department and the administration will allow that substance to be sold on campus at that campus stadium. And Big C often says, well, a lot of the Southeastern programs, they have beautiful campuses and stadiums on those campuses. But when you allow alcoholic sales at a sporting event, isn't that on campus? Isn't that putting alcohol in the hands of minors? For people who say we can't have a player use a substance, he's going to lose his scholarship or he's going to be suspended from the team. At the same time, the school that's not paying these players and fighting tooth and nail to stop from paying them, they're also saying you can have alcoholic beverages. So just keep that in mind as of why a lot of people are going south and maybe joining the SEC. And to me, it's important because I don't think any parent wants their kids to go off to school and have the university sell them alcohol. Now, we heard about cake parties and fraternities and sororities doing their things, and we've heard some pretty bad situations that have happened because of alcoholic abuse or sometimes taking advantage of a freshman. Even if you're a junior or sophomore or senior, it can happen. But we've heard about freshmen being tased, etc., and having all or hazed, and all those hazing incidents where people have been tased, they've been branded, they've had some egregious things happen to join the fraternity. So last year, the NCAA's Division I even voted to allow alcohol sales at NCAA championships events, such as the Final Four. Now, why is that important? You already hear that players have been suspended for using some of these same substances. That's a catch-22. If it's illegal, and if it's so illegal that your players can't use it, why let it be sold on that campus? You're almost inviting that behavior. So when you think about this, at bowl games, the same NCAA handbook allows alcoholic drink sales, not just alcoholic sponsorships, but premium draft beers, even at the Rose Bowl, the granddaddy of them all, in January, sold for $16 each. What college kids paying $16 for a beer? Well, they'll say, well, we'll make it cost prohibitive so that way the college kids won't buy it. Yeah, the adults would buy it and give it to them. That's what's happening anyway. So a lot has changed, and I'm not sure why they still make it illegal for an athlete to put something in his system when the states made certain things legal, and even the athletic departments are trying to say it's okay to have that same product. And they're hoping that people don't pay attention to it. The NCAA regulates casinos and alcohol sponsorships for bowl games in practice, and not according to its written virtues. But the NCAA is about making money and telling athletes they cannot make the money. And for anyone that says that the NCAA is a paragon of virtue, and they can suspend players. Look at Oklahoma. Some players will not be allowed to play in the College Bowl Championship Series because they put something that was deemed illegal in their system. I don't even know what it was, but that's the claim. And a similar thing happened with the quarterback in the Utah State game tonight. But, that everybody has their own thoughts. So if it's impermissible, why are they behind it? The NCAA, therefore, could not permit a game to be called by the Evian Tequila Bowl. Think about that. Even though Evian and Tequila is listed as a Chairman's Club partner on the Gator Bowl down in Florida on the website, along with Elijah Craig Bourbon, Tito's Handmade Vodka, Weiser's Whiskey, the Beefeater Logan Gin, Admiral Nelson's Rum, Daily Cocktails, Budweiser. At least 8 wine companies are sponsoring these bowl games. At the same time, they'll have kids suspended if they're buying alcoholic beverages, because you got to be 21. To me, we all see that money wins. It always has, and it probably always will. I don't know if there's a solution to it, but if you can tell me that you can fine a player or even suspend a player at the same time, you're going to have people telling me that you're gonna do the sponsorship. Who's getting the money? Is a sponsorship to help kids that are caught up on alcoholic sales and having a problem, and everybody knows that everybody wants their kids to go and be safe in a safe environment. If you're a father of a young girl, even a young boy, and we've heard of kids going to college and having sororities take advantage of them, and maybe they force what they call these liquor parties and alcohol parties. I don't want to sound like I'm like the get off my lawn person, but we do know that alcoholism is a problem in this country. And when you tell young people not to use it, the adults are using the money to sponsor the bowl games. Think about something I'm going to bring up. In San Diego, the San Diego County Credit Union Holiday Bowl, there's not an alcohol beverage there. It's okay to go to a credit union and get your money. We understand that. Now, that's in San Diego. He said there's people saying that you can partner with these alcohol beverage companies, but you can't sell it to the minors, but you can use it to sponsor the events that the minors are playing in. This is not professional sports. I understand alcohol sales are legal at a professional sporting event, but when you get to the colleges, it really makes it a problem. Bowl games need revenue, and they need to be able to pay conferences and schools to play in those games, as well as other operational costs, including paychecks for bowl executives who often earn well over $300,000 a year. That's incredible. Money has always won out. I mean, if you take the fact that what does a camera see? There's a lot of times when the camera, if a stadium is not full, oftentimes that camera will aim down, and you won't be able to see what's going on the fans, because they don't want you to see that a 60,000 seat stadium has about 30,000 fans in it, and that happens a lot. And I understand that for the eye optics, but when it comes to players being suspended, whether it's college or pro, and especially college, it's illegal for minors to buy alcoholic beverages. That people just got to understand that. So the question is, if it's okay for them to sell vodka and rum and Budweisers and whatever sponsor writes a check, when will we see cannabis? Because that's legal in the state of California, it's still illegal on the federal level. So are we going to see the holiday cannabis holiday bowl? Will we see the cannabis bowl coming in the next couple of years? You know, cannabis is a $1 billion industry, and if they'll turn a blind eye to even their own handbook because the money's big enough, when will we start hearing about the cannabis bowl or the CBD bowl that will sponsor some of these major college football games or basketball games? Yet if a player uses it, then they'll be fined or even suspended and told that they cannot play in the game. I don't know what the answer is going to be. It just seems to me, if you're driving on the highway and it said the speed limit is 55 miles per hour and someone's driving 65, the CHP they'd probably let you go out here in California. But if you're going 75 miles per hour and the speed limit says 65 or 55, they're probably going to pull you over. And I just want people to keep that in mind as we're so tough on student athletes. And as so many people still say, I can't believe that college athletes want to make money. Aren't they happy just getting a scholarship and playing sports? Well, it's always been that way where money always wins out. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but I think most people do know that it's wrong. And think about some of the advertisements. If you think about to flex the NCAA's power over the bowls, the handbook even says that it has the authority to review any documents specifically related to the bowl game, including title sponsorship and other corporate contracts. These guidelines are similar to advertising guidelines for the NCAA, operated at championship events such as the Division I basketball tournament. The NCAA, think about this when you hear about the NCAA pushing back on players getting paid for their own likeness, called pay for play. They've already fought it. The NCAA, it has allowed limited advertising at those events for malt beverages, beer, and wine products that do not exceed, now think about this, 6% alcohol volume. That's in one cup. But if you have 2 or 3 cups, don't you exceed that? Now, who's going to sit there and give someone a breathalyzer to see if they've exceeded it? And again, it's still illegal for minors. So they're saying it's okay for the adults to do it as they're coming to an event where we have 17, 18, 19-year-old, 20-year-old kids playing sports, making tens of millions of dollars. At some point in time, we got to say we're either pro or we're anti these alcoholic companies that are sponsoring. But you know, as I tell Big C, and Big C says, who's going to pay for these bowl games if we expand the college playoffs? Well, at the same time, you just found out the alcoholic beverages will pay for them. And I wonder if people will just think about this. In the next 5 years, will we see the CBD bowl? Will we see the cannabis bowl? Will we see that? Because those are growing industries, and people know they have money too. And they spend a lot of money. They spend a lot more money than a lot of people want to understand. That's why you'll have a lot of companies popping up all over the place saying to use whatever their product is, that it's an elixir or it's a cure for all, and people are going to go flocking to it because the money's too big to turn away from it. And you know it's going to come. If the SEC conference, and they pride themselves on having the most teams voted into the top 25, well, they're not voted in by other coaches. That's a media poll. So when you let the media come in and have a libation in one conference, and another conference says, no, we don't want to have the libations. Well, which one are you going to be more favorable to when you start writing about who has the better football program? That's just, you can think about that on your own. In late October, the NCAA Board of Governors, the association's top policy-making body, also considered changing, think about this, changing advertising restrictions for the NCAA championships to permit sponsorship by liquor, beer, or wine companies, according to the board's meeting minutes. Think about that. These are the same people that don't want you to get paid for your own likeness if you're a student athlete. But they're saying, okay, you can have alcohol around these guys, which is still illegal for minors. But they pay the money, so the NCAA is saying it's okay. However, the board rejected that notion, holding the NCAA championships event to a higher standards than member schools, which have been allowed to have beer sponsorships. Think about this. In 2017, this is not that long ago, this 2 years ago, the University of Texas, yes, Texas, down in Austin, the Longhorns, they announced that Corona Extra will be an official sponsor of the Longhorns. They announced that in 2017. The University of Texas is expanding their football stadium. I think it holds 102 now. They're going to push it up to around 110 to 115,000. Did you hear what I said? Alcohol is illegal for minors. In 2017, for example, Texas is becoming like the SEC now. They're also the stadiums that hold 100,000 plus. I just want to say it again. In 2017, University of Texas, the Longhorns, part of the Red River Shootout, they announced that Corona Extra would be an official sponsor of the Texas Longhorns program. The college football playoffs also has an official beer sponsor. Dos Equis, even though the playoffs include bowl games that are subject to handbook rules. So for everybody that wants to get on the high horse and say, I don't believe we should play these athletes, they should be happy they're getting an education. Well, if it's your child, we just did the other day, Big C and I did the top high school football athletes in the country that are being recruited by the major colleges. And again, why are so many people leaving the West Coast and going south? The Southeastern Conference, now the Big 12's jumping on board. I'm sure the Pac-12 will be next, where they're going to have at a game at Stanford University or Cal Berkeley or at the LA Coliseum, sponsored by the blankety blank Liquor Bowl. Whatever it is. If it's like Texas, Dos Equis Corona Extra, or the Dos Equis, or whatever it's going to be, the Budweiser College Football League Championship game. And you're going to see that happening. I don't want to see it happening, but it's already happening. People are just closing their eyes to it. So no one can ever say anymore with a straight face that we don't need to pay student athletes because it's not fair. They're getting a scholarship. They should be happy with that. And the rules that govern the individual schools that are different than the rules that cover the NCAA championships are governed by the bowls that get caught somewhere in between. But water will always win out. If you think about this, and I'm gonna close with this. The NCAA, it opted to let this happen. They fought against it for years, but the money's too big. Even the mothership, ESPN, which owns the Las Vegas Bowl, and 7 other bowls, said in a statement that all of our current bowl sponsors have been reviewed and approved by the NCAA, and it declined to comment further. The Gator Bowl said the partners who own the websites, including, keep in mind, people, the partners who own the website, including liquor brands, would be required to pay at least $9,500 in cash or trade to the game's nonprofit parents organization. Think about that. They're saying you can do what we've been fighting against for forever and sponsor these as long as you give some money to your nonprofit agency. So a lot of kids, a lot of these schools will have a nonprofit that will sponsor, feeding people or literacy programs or getting people off the street. And the NCAA is saying, hey, you can do it as long as you give some money to the nonprofit, which is going to sponsor a lot of things. So money will always rule out. It always has, and it always will. And I don't know if that's a good or bad thing. But when you think about the fundraising that goes on for a lot of programs and partnership, there's a distribution partner. There's one called Southern Glazer Wines and Spirits, and it collects products and destinations for the game's parent organizations. These donations support fundraising receptions throughout the year. There's a thing that I want to get on real quick. It's called the proceeds raised from these charities and events help send a child to the game, and numerous other programs. In return, like the Gator Bowl, for example, is listing Daly's Cocktails as a partner of its website, which includes the company's logo with a martini glass in the place of the letter Y. Now we have minors. Think about it. They are sent to a website that asks them to verify their age is at least 21 before entering. They're going to leave it up to the people to verify their own age. Now, how many people have faked an ID or something of that nature to get into a bowl game or to get into a club? A lot of people have done that. I just think major money will always win out. It always has, and I think it always will. No one can say that it's not the case. Again, just to recap, 20 of this year's 40 bowl games list beer companies, liquor brands, or casino companies as sponsors or partners on their websites. Despite the fact that the NCAA considers sponsorship, that it's not supposed to be approvable, it's impermissible. So I think it's all fair and love and war. We've heard it all before. Everybody has their own opinion about what's right or what's wrong. But when you still tell me that a student athlete is illegal for them to drink and drive, but these major universities are actually paying out the money or having money paid to them so they can get their hand in the cookie jar and get in on a lot of the money that's going to be paid to have these programs and have games on TV, etc. I think it's all fair and love and war. That's why I always say that. And money has always ruled out. It always has, and it probably always will. I'm going to take what's called the Big C timeout, also known as the Big C pause. I'm going to come back and talk a lot more football, and even at the pro level where they tie things in, and you can go out and get a libation if you want to. We'll take the Big C timeout, and we hope that you come back and join us in just a moment. All right, we're back for the Big C timeout, also known as the Big C pause, and I really appreciate the way things are going with Big C Sports. Big C is out on vacation travel mode in Southern California, and I just want to say you can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe, iHeartRadio Podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Speaker.com. And the app that I really love is by Google and Alexa. Just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You will hear from our sponsors. You will hear Welcome to the Show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he'll do his thing. And I really appreciate the way things are going with Big C Sports. I want to cover a little bit of the NBA last night before I get into Big C's thoughts on the NFL. Thursday's games, we had Utah at Atlanta. It was 111-106 with the Utah Jazz winning that game. And then we had Brooklyn at San Antonio. It was 118-105, San Antonio getting the win. It's kind of odd to see San Antonio, not even a 500 team so far, but wait until we get into the latter part of the year or even right around the first of the year. I think they'll even that out with Coach Pop. The two games that were marquee games last night in the NBA, the LA Lakers at the Milwaukee Bucks. It was a 111-104 win by Milwaukee. I thought that Milwaukee would win that game, even though I think the Lakers are a better team. But if you want to see the future of the NBA, and you see those ships crossing in the night, one big ship is Giannis Antetokounmpo, and he's just a stud of an athlete. There was a great play at the basket where Anthony Davis was going to the basket. Giannis tried to block it, but Anthony Davis saw him coming and got the dunk anyway. But Giannis didn't give up. If you watch a lot of NBA basketball games, you'll see a lot of players, they play defense with their hands down. Giannis was chasing all over the floor last night. Anthony Davis and LeBron James played great. But those two ships crossing in the night, no one can tell me that LeBron James is still the king of the NBA. Yes, we want him to be, but athletic, athlete for athlete, pound for pound, I would say that is Giannis Antetokounmpo at this time. He can just do more, even though King James was amazing. The Lakers are counting a lot on Anthony Davis, who's also a stud player. But these young players, they've made the NBA so much fun this year. I really appreciated watching that game. The LA Lakers going on the road, dropping 2 in a row. Indiana got them, and also Milwaukee got him. And again, Davis had a kind of a sore ankle, but he still played through it. Just a great, fabulous game. Giannis is just someone to behold. I still think Giannis will look better on the West Coast. Maybe Golden State can find some cap room, but the contract's big. But money talks. I still say as a market for the NBA, does the NBA really want to have Milwaukee be the primary market to carry this product over the next 10 years? We've seen a lot of players make movements over the years. Shaquille O'Neal left a small market in Orlando, somehow ended up in Los Angeles. LeBron James left a small market in Cleveland, somehow ended up in Los Angeles. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Lou Alcindor, left a small market in Milwaukee, somehow ended up in Los Angeles. Kawhi Leonard left a market, even though it's a big market for Canada, but it's not the biggest market, and somehow ended up in Los Angeles. Kawhi Leonard. A lot of people have. I mean, everybody wants to go LA because there's a lot more that you can do than just basketball. And when you think about it, too, everybody knows they have an opinion about how that happens and how that works out, too. And even the dogs are going out to Los Angeles, too. There's a lot of people that are out here in California, and they run around with the dogs, and the dogs always want to bark at each other. And every time, maybe they want to get to the stadium, too. But I think at some point in time, if the NBA wants to spend its time having the most marketable player in one of the most marketable cities, Giannis, you know how to get to LA? He may find his way there before his playing days are over. And then another game in Los Angeles. And this is why I love NBA basketball. James Harden, and I think Houston discovered how to win. I never thought that they could win an NBA championship until I saw them last night. I've seen this act before, but that was Chris Paul and James Harden. That's when either one would have the ball and dribble until 5 seconds left, and then try to get Trent Capella involved, or Paul involved, or anybody else on the team that they wanted to shoot the ball, Ariza at sometimes. Last night they saw how to win an NBA championship. I don't know if they remember it, but they saw it. You don't have to have James Harden holding the ball till 5 seconds are left on the shot clock. You can also get Russell Westbrook to not shoot threes and go inside the paint, what they call mid-range shots. He got 40 points last night. His last basket came on driving inside the paint, not shooting the three and missing. And then James Harden, when I saw him play one-on-one with Kawhi Leonard, even my son told me, he said, "Dad, James Harden's better than Kawhi." And I said, "Yes, son, I see. No one can stop James Harden." And you really can't stop him. If you can't enjoy basketball now with Giannis in Milwaukee, Joel Embiid in Philadelphia, if you think of, and Durant when he comes back and he's going to be in Brooklyn, and then when you come to Golden State, when Curry gets healthy and Thompson gets healthy, you have them. You have LeBron James, Anthony Davis in L.A. You have Chris Paul. I think Chris Paul still has something to add to OKC, but he's past his prime, of course. But you have Paul George, and you have Kawhi Leonard, and I think those guys are amazing. And then you go down to Texas, you got James Harden. James can't miss Harden, and also Westbrook. The NBA is in such a great Luka Doncic. They're trying to build him up down in Texas for the Dallas Mavericks. To me, I mean, it's just amazing. I love NBA basketball right now. I think it's the best thing that we've had in the last couple of years, where you have so many teams that have legitimate superstars and not media-made superstars. But Houston at the Clippers, it was a great game, 122-117. Houston got it done over L.A. It was a back-and-forth game. I thought the Clippers would take it when then Paul George hit a shot with about 5 minutes to play. But then Houston went on a big run. I think it was a 15-0 run, somewhere in there, and they just closed it out. They closed it out, and it's the way that you should close out games, because it could have gone either way. I don't like the way they had, I think it was Beverly and also Westbrook jarring at each other at the end of the game. And Harden told Westbrook, "We don't need that. We're here to win a championship, not garbage talk." And I hope that Westbrook will listen to that, because I don't like saying this because I like California teams, even though I'm impartial. Yeah, how does that make sense? I'm impartial, but I like California more. But I really do, because I live out here. But I think Houston, if they can start running their offense through Russell Westbrook and make people double team him, and then you're going to pull people away from the flame shooter, James Harden, and that's how you're going to win, not having the ball till 5 seconds left and finding who you can shoot the ball to. I think Houston had liftoff last night. I also believe they won't remember how they won the game last night, and they'll revert back to themselves. I want to just say NFL football is amazing, and we're in Week 16 of the NFL, and Big C's thoughts. The Texans, 9-5. At the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, 7-7. The over-under, will Jameis Winston throw more touchdowns and interceptions? I don't know. I think we'll have more touchdowns and interceptions, but I think the Texans should win that game, but I'm not so sure. It's a 1 o'clock p.m. kickoff East Coast time Saturday on the NFL Network, and the Texans are favored by 3.5. Quarterback Deshaun Watson needs to take advantage of Tampa Bay's bad secondary. They're really bad. They're porous. But Tampa Bay, their key is to let Jameis Winston be who he is. Over the past couple of months, he's really bounced back from a lot of early season mistakes. I still look at a game where I can't trust the Texans. And because they're in Florida, they're not inside, where there's a lot of heat and humidity. I'm not one to pick games, but I give the edge to Tampa if they don't have a lot of turnovers. The Buffalo Bills at 10-4 on the season. At the New England Patriots, are we seeing a changing of the guard? Probably not. That's a 4:30 kickoff East Coast time Saturday on the NFL networks. And the Patriots are favored by 6.5. But they're playing against a defense in the Buffalo Bills that have really figured out a way to win. You think about, they have efficient possessions. Running back Devin Singletary against New England's run defense. It's just hard to run the ball against New England. But it's also hard to run the ball against Buffalo. I think the key for the Patriots, Tom Brady, has to avoid turnovers, has to play like he's 35 instead of 42, and New England has to find a way to run the ball. Short passing game can help. It's a boring style of football they have to play to win. But running back Sonny Michel, give him more touches and you have a chance against Buffalo. But if this game, think about this. If this game were in Buffalo, you might have a hard time picking New England. But we know the officials will help New England. They're going to get every benefit of the doubt. It's just the way it is. That's my opinion. But I think from the tuck rule on, I think they've proven that in the tripping rule against the Dallas Cowboys. I'm not picking a winner, but to me, I still favor the Patriots because they are at home. The LA Rams, boy, this team is Jekyll and Hyde. Sometimes they're lightning hot, other times they're ice cold. The Rams are 8-6 at the San Francisco 49ers, 11-3. But the Niners are the best 11-3 team they've had since the 2012 season when they went to the Super Bowl with Colin Kaepernick and Coach Jim Harbaugh. It's an 8:15 p.m. kickoff East Coast time on the NFL Network. And the 49ers are favored by 6.5. They have to get off to a fast start and play from ahead. I mean, same thing for the Rams. Aaron Donald, he had a bad game, last week. Dallas took care of that, but he has to wreak a lot of havoc on the 49ers offensive line and their backup center right now. 49ers keys, wide receiver, Deebo Samuel has to play well. Emmanuel Sanders. Garoppolo can't throw interceptions. He tends to turn the ball over more than he should. And if they keep the short passing game, like the 15-yard and under passing, Garoppolo is solid. When they start trying to have him throw 40 yards downfield, that's when he has issues. Just run the ball. San Francisco has a dynamic running game. They can run the ball. I think San Francisco's inability to just not turn the ball over, that's what cost them against the Atlanta Falcons. Kittle was trying to get to the sideline and had a turnover. And when you tackle, you got to tackle up high, especially if you're at the goal line. When Julio Jones was hit low, he leaned over the goal line. The ball got across, and that's how that's how the Rams have to play, throwing the ball and getting it to your good receivers, not trying to run the ball a lot against this 49er defense. Todd Gurley, if you're going to give him the ball a lot, make sure it's in the passing game. That's just my opinion. I give the slight edge to the 49ers in this game because they're at home, and I really do believe they have a better offense and even maybe the better defense, even though they've given up a lot of points lately. But I think they'll shore things up at San Francisco on Saturday. The New York Giants 3-11 at the Washington Redskins, also 3-11. That's a 1 o'clock kickoff East Coast time Sunday on Fox Sports. And the Washington Redskins are favored by 2.5 points. And say it ain't so, but the key to the Giants establish a ground game. Saquon Barkley, you got to give him the ball. You got to let him run the ball. And wouldn't it be not anathema to football? Saquon Barkley kind of has the moves, the cutback moves that Lamar Jackson has in Baltimore. Why not try the Wildcat with Saquon Barkley? I don't know if he can pass the ball like Jackson can, but you get him the ball in different ways. I think that would help at all for the Giants to at least look into next year, having a better season next year than they have this year. The rushing attack for the Redskins, featuring veteran Adrian Peterson, is going to allow Dwayne Haskins to take a couple of shots downfield. And I look forward to this game most likely being at home with the Redskins. I still would give the Redskins a slight edge no matter who the Giants play at quarterback. I still want to see Eli Manning play more football in the last. There's only 2 weeks left. I know they're going back and forth with that, but we'll see what happens. The New Orleans Saints 11-3 at the Tennessee Titans, 8-6. It's a 1 o'clock kickoff East Coast time Sunday on Fox Sports. And when you look at the Titans are a team that can beat you at home, but I think they let the best get by them. They look really good against the Raiders, but a lot of people do. The Saints are a different breed of cat. They're coming into town. They have the great Drew Brees, who can throw the ball downfield. Even if he throws 40 times a game, he'll probably complete at least 35 or at least 30 to 35 passes. I'll give it that. So they're tough to beat in New Orleans, even on the road. If you're going to remember the fact that they won a game at Seattle earlier in the year, but that was Bridgewater in the quarterback for them. I still give the slight edge to the Saints, even though I wouldn't be too surprised if them good old boys down south found out to give them some libations in their Gatorade, Big C, as you good old boys often do down south too. We'll see what happens in that game. I'm still going to give the slight edge to the New Orleans Saints. Jacksonville Jaguars 5-9 at the Atlanta Falcons 5-9. They're really flapping their wings, especially with that big win over their former division rival, the San Francisco 49ers, out at Levi Stadium in Santa Clara. 1 o'clock kickoff East Coast time Sunday on Fox Sports. The Falcons favored by 7.5. I don't know if I'm buying 7.5. I know this is a team that can score a lot of points. If they can find the way to get the ball to Julio Jones more, I think the Falcons can start winning more, even though they only have 2 games left. For Jacksonville, they gotta establish a run. and hopefully they can slow down, giving that ball to Matt Ryan again and finding those key receivers, especially Julio Jones. Really love the way that when they connect for big plays. I look for the Falcons to come out aggressive. The way they closed out that last 5 minutes against San Francisco, they were behind in the fourth quarter, and they came back and won. They forced some turnovers, and I'm really impressed with the Falcons, the way they've been playing now. I don't know if it's going to keep their head coach's job there or not, but we'll see if Dan Quinn's going to be around next year. Matt Ryan has to play good. He just has to, and if he plays well, then I think the Falcons have a chance of winning that game and winning 2 in a row. The Ravens, the NFL's best Baltimore Ravens, 12-2 at the Cleveland Browns. They're 6-8. We know Coach Kitchens has a lot of naysayers behind him now, and maybe it will be a swan song for him. 2 more games in Cleveland. We'll see what happens. It's a 1 o'clock kickoff East Coast time Sunday on CBS Sports. The Ravens are favored by 9.5. The keys for this game: Baltimore has no answers for running back Nick Chubb, but the Browns don't know they have him on their team. Sometimes they want to pass it like Air Coryell did it back in the day for the Chargers. But Nick Chubb is an amazing, dominant running back. My opinion, hasn't been used enough this year, and that's why the Browns are 6-8. I think the Ravens, when you think about them winning this game, Lamar Jackson's, you're not going to be able to stop Lamar Jackson, but you also don't want to get Lamar Jackson banged up in one of those heated rivals. You can coast and probably win this game. That's my opinion. But when you look at Harbaugh, he may not take out Jackson. He kept him in against the Jets, even though they had the lead put in their socket or in their stockings for the Christmas season. But he may play the whole game. I don't think he needs to. And I think Baltimore gets that win. Carolina Panthers 5-9 at the Indianapolis Colts. They are 6-8 on the season. That's a 1 o'clock kickoff East Coast time Sunday on Fox Sports. And the Colts are favored by 7.5. The keys for the Panthers: that front seven will need to prioritize stopping Colts running back Marlon Mack. The guy is amazing if they just give him the ball more. And the Colts offense, it must run through Mack, while quarterback Jacoby Brissett must find ways to get the ball downfield. And he struggled to do that this year. I know he had that knee injury earlier in the year, and that still may be psychologically weighing on him. They just haven't been the same team since that. But the Panthers also got rid of their head coach, and most likely they're on an emotional low. The Colts should win at home in the Dome in Indianapolis. Cincinnati Bengals, they're 1-13 on the season at the Miami Dolphins, 3-11. That's a 1 o'clock kickoff. And it's must-see football for anyone trying to get a top draft pick out of college, Big C, especially Cincinnati. Dolphins favored by 1.5. 1 o'clock kickoff Sunday, East Coast time on CBS Sports. So the Bengals, you got to get running back Joe Mixon going. But does it really matter? If you're the Bengals, be honest. You don't want to win games. I know Big C says that guys are playing for their paycheck, but the organization is playing for a high draft pick. It doesn't make sense if they win the last 2 games on the season. And I still think the Dolphins, they didn't buy into that thinking either. I think players are playing for their jobs. I believe Big C on that. Look for running quarterback Ryan Swaggy Fitzpatrick to have a great season. A conclusion, the last 2 games, I think he'll play great and give wide receiver Devontae Parker a chance to catch the ball downfield more. I look forward to the Dolphins getting the win in this game, and especially if Cincinnati's smart, they won't try to win this game. That's just by a Big C. Everybody has their own thoughts. Pittsburgh Steelers, 8-6 at the New York Jets, 5-9. 1 o'clock kickoff East Coast time Sunday on CBS Sports. The Steelers are favored by 2.5, and they should get it. You have safety Micah Fitzpatrick. That guy's a stud. Terrell Edmonds have potential. I think they have the best names on the Steelers defense. Fitzpatrick and Edmonds sounds like a law firm, and they play defense like they're a law firm. Sam Darnold, coming off a 2-turnover performance against the Ravens, most likely will turn the ball over twice again against this defense. Look for the Steelers to go in there and get the win. It's a mini bye week after a Thursday game will be played. The Jets, a chance to get healthy, but that won't make a difference. I still think the Steelers have a better team, of course, better coaching, and the Steelers will most likely get that win in the Big Apple. The Oakland Raiders 6-8 at the Los Angeles Chargers 5-9. Both of these 2 great franchises have been on the move over the last couple of years. San Diego Chargers, now the Los Angeles Chargers, even though they play in Carson. They'll be in Inglewood next year, so they're really not Los Angeles at all. People say they're coming back to LA, but they're not. They're coming to Inglewood. And then you have the Raiders going to Las Vegas. It's a 4:05 kickoff East Coast time Sunday on CBS Sports. And the Chargers are favored by 6.5, and they'll probably win it by at least 7. So take the over on that. The Raiders will have to rely on running back Josh Jacobs. He's good, and they're just going to have to find a way to run the ball and not turn it over. But the Raiders have played without a lot of passion. They just have. When I saw what happened at home, the last game, and they let Tennessee come in there and win it, they just haven't played like they really want to focus. They're focused on moving how to get a house in L.A. or in Las Vegas, who's going to be in that team. Phillip Rivers having time to throw against a pass defense that really is among the bottom of the league. I think the Chargers, they got to close out too, because just like the Raiders, they're leaving their stadium. They want to have a good start going into the stadium over in Inglewood, even though they call it Los Angeles. I think the Chargers, this is a team, there's no holy roller part 2 in this game, Big C, I don't think. I think the Lightning Bolts will get it done, and they'll make the fans of Carson happy, but the Raiders will have more fans in Carson than the Chargers. That's my opinion. Detroit Lions 3-10-1. At the Denver Broncos 5-9. It's a 4:05 p.m. kickoff East Coast time Sunday on CBS Sports. The Broncos are favored by 6.5. And you have Lions wide receiver Kenny Golladay already has reached 1,000 yards receiving and 10 touchdowns. It'll be a big test for Denver's defense. But defense in the Mile High City might be a little bit easier to play because offenses coming in there from sea level have a harder time adjusting to the climate. Von Miller, he needs to have 3 sacks to reach double digits for the 6th consecutive year. I think he'll get it, and I think that Denver will pull out a close win over the Detroit Lions, who really haven't been a threat to beat anybody over the last couple of years. Dallas Cowboys 7-7. This game against the Eagles 7-7 is for the king of the NFC East. And as that good old boy Jimmy Johnson once said, how about them Cowboys? And I remember that Jimmy Johnson had a statement. They were playing the 49ers in a playoff game. And this is right when, they were rolling. The Cowboys were the best team in football. And the 49ers went in there, and I think they got beat 38-20 or somewhere around there. I might be wrong with the score. But I still believe the Cowboys scored like 38 points. But Jimmy Johnson told Jerry Jones that he was going to guarantee to win, that they're going to pound them, they're going to pound them, they're going to pound them, and they're going to go to the Super Bowl. And they did. And Jerry Jones said, well, when he heard that pep talk, he was able to go back and go to sleep. And that's exactly what he did. They jumped out to a big lead over the 49ers and won that game. Emmitt Smith and Troy Aikman and Michael Irvin, of course. I think Dallas has to have that same mentality. Think about it. 4:25 kickoff East Coast time, Sunday on Fox Sports. Cowboys favored by 1.5 at Philadelphia. The whole sports universe, especially down in Texas, will be watching this game. Might be the highest rated game on the weekend. They got to ride Dak Prescott, who's been dealing with finger injury, but everybody's injured. It doesn't matter what's going on. They got some stuff they can spray on you. You don't even feel the pain. But now, a possible shoulder injury. Everybody has an injury. Carson Wentz, this guy, is he the real deal? I don't know. On defense, they got to pressure quarterback Carson Wentz. They got to make tackles on running back Miles Sanders. And I just believe that Dallas, and I may be wrong, they're fighting for Coach Garrett's job, even though he may not be there next year, no matter whether they win or not. But if they don't win, he's not going to be there. I think Wentz has to find Zach Ertz out of Stanford if they have any chance. I think the Cowboys are a better team. Now it's time for them to prove it, and I can't wait to see that game. I think the Dallas goes on the road, and if they play well, if they're aggressive, they get a win. But if they're settling for field goals instead of going for it on 4th and 1 on your opponent's 30-yard line or more, run the ball. Do what Baltimore does. Try to get the first down and trust your defense. If they're passive, they'll lose. If they're aggressive, I think they'll win. Arizona Cardinals 4-9-1 at the Seattle Seahawks 11-3. That's a 4:25 p.m. kickoff. East Coast time, Sunday on Fox Sports. The Seahawks are favored by 9.5. I think they'll get it. For the Cardinals, their job is to just go out and try to play spoiler. I don't think they're going to play spoiler against the Seahawks. Might be a little rainy up in the great Northwest on Sunday. Seahawks play well in rain. Arizona's an indoor team. Looking for the Seahawks to just go out and finish off strong. They can't look ahead to the 49er game coming in next week. Quarterback Houdini Russell Wilson, he needs to turn to his veteran wide receivers along with rookie wideout DK Metcalf. They got to get momentum and stop coming from behind to try to win games. I still think that Legion of Boom Part 2 will carry the flag for the Seattle Seahawks. That 12th man is amazing. The Kansas City Chiefs 10-4 at the Chicago Bears 7-7. That's an 8:20 p.m. kickoff East Coast time Sunday on NBC Sports. The Chiefs are favored by 4.5 points. Looking forward to seeing this game. Quarterback Patrick Mahomes, he's like Houdini. He's an amazing athlete. Can throw it, can run it, can do so much to give a defense fits. The Bears aren't going anywhere. And I look at the Chiefs having an easier time going in there. Trubisky had a nice run to the season, and he showed that he had some mobility. But I still think the Chiefs are a better team now, and they're playing better defense now, which will always help a team going into the playoffs. The last NFL game coming up for this weekend on this beautiful Christmas Eve weekend, we have the Green Bay Packers 11-3 at the Minnesota Vikings 10-4. It's an 8:15 p.m. kickoff East Coast time Monday on ESPN. The Vikings at home, favored by 3.5. If the Packers can exploit Minnesota's secondary the way other teams have, then they should be able to go in there and win their first NFC North championship since 2016. On the other hand, if Kirk Cousins is going to have the ability to brag about, do you like that? Do you like that? Then the Vikings got to get a win with their defense in their running game. Running back Dalvin Cook's status is uncertain, and that's the hangnail. His status is uncertain. So even if he does play, Green Bay still has discount double check. I'm telling you, there's something about Kirk Cousins against discount double check. Rodgers, which quarterback do you trust with 2 minutes left and behind by 4? We may find out, but if the Vikings defense plays the way they should, we'll see. If it comes down to Cousins winning a game-winning drive, I don't know. If it's discount double check with a game-winning drive, then you tell me who's going to win that game, and we'll find out. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe, iHeartRadio Podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Spreaker.com. And the app that I really love is by Google. Or Alexa, just say Google. Or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You will hear from our sponsors. You will hear welcome to the show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he will do his thing. And I really appreciate the way things are going with Big C Sports. Also, for you high school aficionados, the guys who really love high school sports right before Christmas, Florida, St. Thomas Aquinas playing Honolulu, Hawaii, St. Louis High School out of Honolulu on Saturday in Las Vegas before Christmas. I don't like it. High school kids should be with their families. Geico Insurance is sponsoring the game. I know they're not going to turn down the money, but the kids don't get the money. This is going to some people who already make money. They're not giving this money to kids. 2 private schools. I think the flight from Florida to Las Vegas is about 2,700 miles. The flight from Hawaii to Las Vegas is about 3,000 miles. That's a lot of plane flight in the air for high school kids to play a bowl game. There's also Marietta, Georgia, and they're going to play Eastside Catholic out of the state of Washington, and they're playing their game, I believe, tonight. So it's all fair and love and war. They're doing it for the money. I want to close out tonight's NBA schedule. Memphis at Cleveland, Sacramento at Indiana, Detroit at Boston, Washington at Toronto, the defending world champion Toronto Raptors. I want to pay homage to their title. And then Dallas at Philadelphia, the great Luka Doncic, Joel Embiid, New York at Miami, Phoenix at Oklahoma City, Minnesota at Denver, Orlando at Portland, and New Orleans out of that Big Easy in San Francisco, California, taking on the Golden State Warriors. This is not your grandfather's Golden State Warriors team. This team is struggling, but it's a rebuilding season for the Golden State Warriors. I know so many people have a lot of passion about, do you pay high school or do you pay college players for their likeness? Do you? How about the sponsorship? Can you sponsor alcoholic beverage companies to minors? When you're 18 years old, you're still considered a 17, 18-year-old kids. They're still minors. They're not able to drink. Got to be 21, the legal age. But the sponsorships, the money won out, Big C, just like the Democrats debating last night. I want Yang to give me $1,000 and give every American $1,000. I know Bernie wants health care. Maybe they can put their thoughts together. Everybody has their own opinion. It's all fair and love and war. As we always said, Back in the day, there was a man by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man, and he would always tell Ali, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young men, rumble. As I always say, Big C, what are you looking forward to in the sports universe? I'm looking forward to everybody being healthy, wealthy, and wise, having great time with family and friends on this beautiful holiday season. And you can always follow Big C Sports every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. As we always tell you, that's never, ever an excuse for domestic violence. If you know any man or woman going through that garbage, please pick up the phone and call 911, because no man or woman should ever have to go through that garbage on their own. And as we always tell you on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.